Welcome back to our podcast, Crossing Barriers, Building Friendships, a podcast of Peace Lutheran Church in Spring Hill, Tennessee. My guests today are Phil Dodson, the Executive Director of Lunches for Learning, and also with us is Jessica Gonzalez, who is the Manager of External Relations. I understand that, Jessica, you've had a whole bunch of different jobs with Lunches for Learning. Phil, it actually is kind of the point person in the United States, where Jessica is actually in Honduras. I love the story of how Lunches for Learning got started. Ron Hicks, the founder, was taking a motorcycle trip through Central America, and it just so happened that in Honduras, a schoolgirl begging for food stirred his compassion into action. In normal circumstances, in other words, when there's not a pandemic happening, Lunches for Learning now feeds over 2,000 students every school day in 46 different schools. Phil, can you highlight for us this journey from one man's effort to combat extreme poverty to the incredible work Lunches for Learning is doing now?
I'll be glad to. Thanks for the opportunity, Pastor Ann, and a joy to be with you and your audience today. It is an amazing story, Ron's story about meeting young Annabelle. Her name was Annabelle, to pronounce it the way it is in Honduras. Because he was the father of two daughters, he saw his daughters in her face, in her eyes, and as he left Honduras and went back home, he was haunted by the idea that this young girl, instead of being in school, was out begging for food. And that started a series of fortunate events that brought him back to Honduras to find a solution. And what he found was, what he determined was, if we could provide lunch at school, these kids wouldn't have to drop out of school because their bellies are empty. And then they would stay in school and continue to learn while also being healthy and receiving the nutrition they need. So it started with that one school, that one girl and her school, about 100 students or so, and it just began to grow. And then 2 schools, and then 3 and 4. But with the help of the principal of that school, who is still there, Roxana, she's still in that school and still helping us. She introduced us to a number of other schools. And as we were able to secure funding from generous groups in the U.S., like Peace Lutheran Church is a school sponsor now, we've been able to grow to 46 schools and over 2,000 students receiving lunch every day. And their lives are being changed by generous folks here in the U.S.
What was the year that it actually started with that first school? Do you remember?
I do. His encounter with Annabelle at the border crossing was 2004. But the first school year that we provided school lunches was the 05 school year. The year starts in February and goes through November. So it was the 05 school year was our first school year providing lunches.
It's amazing how oftentimes we encounter difficult situations and we think, what difference can just one person make? But Ron made it happen. And
I would say one thing to add to that, to piggyback on what you just said, is that he encountered this young girl. It was a very brief encounter. He gave her a few coins and watched her go buy food immediately with the few coins he gave her. He began to realize what the problem was. He went back home, but he didn't leave it there, which is what most of us would do. He went back to Honduras, got a translator, found Annabelle again begging at the same place, and made it all happen because his heart was warmed by that encounter, and he made something. He did something about it.
Yes, yes. Jessica, you grew up in Nacaome, Honduras, and can you describe for us the geography of this region and also tell us about the people living in their area and describe their living conditions for us?
Okay, Pastor, I not grew up in Nacaome. I grew up in Huascoran.
Oh, sorry.
It's the same region, just a different town.
Yes, but Phil was talking about the first Lunches for Learning school, and I had to tell you that was my school too.
Yes, that's great.
Many years before Lunches for Learning, but that was my school too. And talking about the people in that area, maybe some people said, but why they not get a job? It's not easy to get a job there. You have been there and you know that our communities are remote. are from far away from the downtown. If they have to move to get a job, they have to take maybe 2 buses, and it's a lot of money to invest. And they have to move about maybe 4 or 5 miles to get down, and it's impossible to walk. And talking about the geography is also not easy to have a plantation, maybe corn or all that stuff, because the water, we have a lot of water issues. We don't have running water. We cannot, open a faucet and get the water. It's not easy. There is community where they get water maybe 1 day per week.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of lack of resources in those communities.
Yes, you're right, Jessica. I have been there, and it is a very desolate, dry area that would be very, very hard to farm. And
one thing I would add to what Jessica said is that we're trying to break a multi-generational cycle of poverty in this region. So these kids who drop out of school to go find food every day, their parents and their grandparents also had to do that, because for a number of reasons, and we won't go into all of them, but because so many generations have had to do that, the lack of education, that's another reason why finding work is so difficult for these people. They don't have reading, writing, and math skills to be able to do that.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. Phil, before COVID and what you hope to return to, can you outline for us the well-oiled system Lunches for Learning has for getting food for meal prep to school children in these remote areas? And then how are the meals prepared and distributed?
Yes, it is a well-oiled machine, and it's because we started with one school and then gradually grew. And so we have developed this well-oiled machine. Over 17 years we've been in the region. So essentially, the program involves full community involvement. When we deliver a month's worth of food to each school once a month, and when we arrive with the monthly supply of food, the principal is required to sign for the food. So we have record of exactly how much food we delivered, solicits the help of mothers in the community, mothers of the students, to work in a rotation to cook and serve the meals. So that's involvement by the mothers. The students are required to be in school in order to receive lunch. So it's accountability for them. There's no free lunch. You have to be in school so that we're accomplishing the goal of getting them educated. And then at the back end of the process, the principals provide us reports about how many students and mothers and teachers ate lunch every single day of the month, so we can track what we delivered, how much was utilized, to make sure everything's being utilized correctly. And so in terms of the way the meals are prepared and distributed, it is the mothers of the students themselves who take turns. Sometimes it's once a week, every 10 days or so, depending on the number of families in the community. The mothers actually come to the school. If there's a kitchen at the school, they do all this work right there, where they grind the corn to make the tortillas, and they boil water to mix with the powdered milk to make the milk, and then they cook the beans and the rice as well. All the food items are delivered in dehydrated form because there's no refrigeration, since there's no electricity on site. And so the mothers are a very active role in cooking the food, serving the food, and then cleaning up and getting ready for the next crew to come in the next day. So it really is a very well-oiled machine. Month to month, we have this process that works beautifully when schools are in session and we're able to be under normal operations.
And not only that, but you have to help the schools get set up. I remember for our school, how you provided the moms with pans and plates and
That's
cups
right.
And those sorts of things so that they could actually feed the students. So
Right.
there's a startup involved besides
That's right.
the ongoing process of getting them food each month as well.
Lunches for Learning does provide all of the cooking utensils and the eating utensils for the kids, which is generally a bowl, a spoon, and a cup for the milk. And I'll tell you, the kids routinely tell us that cup of milk is their favorite part of the meal, because milk is something that we take for granted here in the States. But when you live in an area that has no farming, because there's nothing, you can't grow anything. There are no cows or goats anywhere nearby, and no refrigeration. You don't get milk. When they get milk with the daily lunch, that's their favorite part of the meal for many of them.
And what you're not saying is that it's hot milk, because the water has just been boiled for them to make the milk with, which seems a little strange for us too.
And many of the kids actually eat the milk with a spoon like soup because it's hot.
Yes, yes. So just like here in the U.S., Honduras schools were closed during COVID. So Jessica, how did Lunches for Learning pivot during COVID to feed school children who were not attending school?
Was something new for us, because we had to change our method to deliver the food. Even the amount of the food, it changed, but we face it. And now, 5 months since we started with the new method, the new deliveries, we feel comfortable because we have the support and the commitment of the teachers and the mothers, and we share the same goal. The mother, the teachers, and Lunches for Learning, that our vision is to feed the children. So that is the motivation that gives us the strength to face everything.
Yes, the strength to face everything, absolutely. So it's my understanding, instead of providing, say, 7 items to all the school children, you're now providing 3 or 4 items to the school children's family. So not only are you feeding the school children, but you're feeding their entire family. Did I say that right?
Not exactly. No, we you're very close though. Very close. It's true that we normally provide rice, beans, corn for tortillas, powdered milk, and then oil for cooking, and sugar for flavoring, and then a daily multivitamin. So instead, we pared that down to just rice, corn, and beans, which is standard menu item, traditional menu items in Honduras. But it's for simplicity. We do provide essentially a 1 month supply of food to each child. We give it to the parents just so that if a mother has 3 kids in school, it's only one mother showing up instead of a crowd of people. For COVID and crowd control reasons, we are delivering to the mothers rather than to all the kids. But we're getting food to the children only, to the students, and they're getting essentially the equivalent of a 1 month supply, which is 20 days of food, because they're in school Monday through Friday, 4 weeks. So we're essentially giving them the same volume of food in just a different way that they take home and have at home.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thanks for explaining that to me. Okay. So Phil, now in normal circumstances, what barriers do you face?
I would say the most significant barrier we face is not in Honduras. It's understanding that we don't have this problem with the Peace Lutheran Church community or congregation, but understanding among Americans of how different the starvation problem in Honduras is compared to the hunger and poverty that we do see here in the U.S. A provocative statement, or a statement that sounds provocative when I say it, is that we don't have a starvation problem in the U.S. We do have poverty and hunger, yes, but we don't have a starvation problem. In Honduras, the kids who we haven't gotten to yet wake up every day with no food at all and no safety net, no place to get food unless they go out and find it or beg for it. Whereas in the U.S., kids whose families are struggling, we have over 20 million kids in the U.S. who get free lunch at school every day. That's part of the safety net that we have here. So there is hunger. There are people who are what we call food insecure in the U.S. We've heard that term before. But in Honduras, it's a starvation problem. No food at all and no place to get it. No community food pantries, and no welfare or WIC or food stamps or other safety net programs that we have here in the U.S. So our biggest barrier is just getting Americans to understand how different the starvation problem is in Honduras as compared to what we see here at home.
That's why I love it when I'm able to take people with me to Honduras so they can see for themselves the difference, because it is very, very different.
You see it immediately, yes.
Jessica, what criteria is used to bring a school into the Lunches for Learning family? And what commitments does the community, parents, and school staff make to be a participant in Lunches for Learning?
Okay, the most important criteria is that they really need it. So we had to visit the community because we get a lot of letter requests to be added to the programs, hundreds. So we had to visit the community and to see if they need it. Then we set up a meeting with the community and with the teachers. Because as Phil said before, we are a group of people working together. So they have responsibilities at same as us. So the responsibilities of the teacher is to help us to fill the report that we provide and to call the mother or set up meeting with the community when we need it. And for the mother is to attend to prepare the food for the children and also to send the children to the school. That is a big commitment they have to do because they have to send. Okay, it's a big commitment for us that the parents agree to send the children every day to a school because it's our goal, as you know, is that the children finish even sixth grade in some school, because we have some school that have the junior highs and other only at sixth grade. Commitment to Lunches for Learning have a commitment to. It is that provide the food every month of the year, of the school year. So they will have the food at school. They don't have to pick up anywhere. We will get the food to that school. It's our commitment.
So tell me one of the first things you said. First of all, we have to determine that they really need it. What are some of the things that you look for to determine that a community really needs to be a part of the Lunches for Learning program?
Good question. Good question. Let me dive in real quick. I want Jessica to finish this, but we start with talking to the principals in our schools in the program already. We ask them, what communities or other schools do you know who have a real need where the kids are desperate for food? So we get input from our principals. We also talk to the education ministry administrators, what we would call the education department here in the US, and say, what do you know about the area and what schools need our program? Then we also talk to the mayors of the towns. Please tell us where the needs are. And so we compare those three groups and look for overlap where the need is really identified. And then we do what we call a drive-by. We actually go to the community to visually validate the need. It's a lot of work, but we want to make sure that the food that we're providing the kids is going to the kids who need it the most.
So tell us what happens in that drive-by, Jessica.
We check a lot of, to see if they are so close to the main road that maybe they had more possibilities. But if they are far away from the main road, maybe they don't have the same possibilities. Also, there is a lot of community that had energy and that had another resources that other community doesn't have. So we had to check everything, to see where they really need it.
And just like in the US, Pastor Ann, you can drive through a community and see where need is, economic need. We can see it in Honduras as well, but we do this other research before we ever drive by to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to identify the need.
Yeah, also we can see it for the houses. You can see the material the houses are built. So.
And
whether or not they have cars and garages.
That's right. And most of the homes that the communities where we work don't have cars or garages or driveways or even solid walls. They're sticks and mud and scraps of tin on the top.
Yeah, those are kinds of things that we take for granted, are cars and garages. But here, we're talking about houses that are sticks and muds. Right. So at Peace Lutheran Church, we have adopted Francisco Morazan at Santa Rita And we have two fundraisers each year to help us keep our commitment. And when I visited the school a couple of years back, there was a hole in the roof that ran the length of the building. And we were able to supply the funds for a new roof, which we were excited to do. Phil, what are some of the ways folks can become involved in Lunches for Learning?
Well, the way to become involved initially is to become a school sponsor, as Peace Lutheran Church has already done, and provide us the resources, meaning the funding, to provide the life-changing lunch program, right? That's the key to what we do. Above and beyond that, we invite people, when times get back to normal, whenever that happens, we want people to travel with us to Honduras, as you have done, as Joseph Kerstetter did. And watching Joseph Kerstetter interact with the families in the Santa Rita community was not only fun, but when Joseph and Pastor Ann walked onto the property there at Santa Rita. It's a small property, and I think
it may have been Jason Bauer actually at Santa Rita. Joseph came the year before.
That's right. You're right. That's right. I got that wrong. I was on the trip with Joseph. Anyway, but watching sponsors like you guys walk onto the property and seeing the families and the kids light up, knowing these are the people, or these are representatives of the people who are providing our lunches. To the kids, it's lunch. To the parents, it's a life-changing, changing the trajectory of the lives of their kids. And they love seeing the people who are supporting them and hugging them and speaking to them and doing drama for them or giving them gifts, whatever they can do. So getting involved initially is helping us provide us the funds to provide the life-changing lunch program, but traveling with us to Honduras to see the impact your generosity is having is the second best thing you can do.
And that's one of the things that I feel is so important for us at Peace Lutheran Church. It's not just to write you a check every month, but actually to form friendships with the students at our school. And I'm so thankful for the ways that Jessica, you and Ramon and Junior have helped us by taking pictures of the students at Santa Rita and with their names there so that we can write them letters and so that we can get to know them better. And that all kind of came to a stop with COVID, but I look forward to resuming that again soon. I have a quick story to tell. One of our fundraisers, we had several different door prizes, and there were some bags with some nice stuff, but then there was things like a bag of rice and a bag of beans and some powdered milk. And Graham, who was a 7-year-old, he got the bag that had vitamins in it, and he didn't get why he was getting chewable vitamins. So his mom explained to him that the students in Honduras needed those. So then once he heard that story, he wanted to know if the school children needed toys. He wanted to send some of his toys to Honduras too. And I just thought that was really precious and a way to begin to build those friendships and to get that understanding. But that's part of the thing, that sending toys really doesn't communicate and doesn't translate. What we really need to do is send funds so that people on the ground, like Jessica and Ramon and Phil, who's been there gobs of times, can make the best impact with the funds we spend. Speaking of that, Phil, can you share some success stories and tell us how friendships are formed?
Yes, I would. We have a number of success stories, and we have examples are kids who have expanded their education because of the Lunches for Learning program, because they remained in school and graduated. They become teachers' aides, they become electricians or mechanics in their hometowns. We have some who have actually been able to continue through high school and will become what they call an accountant, what we might call an office clerk, but these are real jobs. These are full-time careers that these kids have because they stayed in school and have the skills to compete in the Honduran economy for jobs and support their families. But there's one story, I'll tell it briefly. It's an exceptional story, but the exceptional stories are the best, right? In 2018, Jessica took me to one of our schools and actually had two of my 3 kids with me on this particular trip. We walked into a classroom and I was introduced to a young man named Pedro. Pedro, in the fall of 2017, was brought to the school in a rusty wheelchair. He couldn't stand or walk, and because his body was so atrophied from poor chronic malnutrition. He also had developmental disabilities, which we think was because of chronic malnutrition as a young child. He was not fully developed and was struggling, and his mother thought he was going to not survive. She brought him to the school and said, can he just receive lunch? He's not going to be able to learn. Can he just receive lunch every day? That was in October of 2017. In June of 2018, I'm there. The principal is introducing him to me through Jessica's translation. And at her request, the principal's request, this young man, Pedro, stood up, walked around the desk, and shook my hand.
Oh my goodness.
He was 12 years old and when he arrived the year before, couldn't even stand up because his legs were atrophied so badly. The nutrition of the lunches changed him physically to the point later in that day, he was on the soccer field with his friends. On
the soccer field.
It's a little awkward because he hadn't been walking very long, but he's running around chasing a soccer ball where a year earlier he was in a wheelchair, couldn't even stand. Not
That's
only
incredible.
that, but when I met him, he was taking a math quiz. He was 2 years behind his age group, but he's in school, he's learning, and his life is completely transformed because the nutrition and the Lunches for Learning lunches and the fact that he can be in school and learn. That's an amazing story. And it's the best one we've got. And I'm proud to share it because it's an amazing transformation.
It's beautiful. That's just an outstanding story. Yeah. So Jessica, tell us what the COVID situation is like in Honduras, and kind of, if you have a crystal ball and can predict the future, what do you see happening with COVID?
Now we are in the worst time for COVID because we had the primary election on March, and also for the celebrating the Mom's Day in May. A lot of people traveled to their born homes, so to visit their relative, and for both. So they move with them, they travel with them the virus too. So now we had a raising in those communities where there was 0 cases of COVID. So that we are facing now in some of our communities too. And for when the school are going to start, we don't know yet. The authorities had the hope that through the vaccination, we can start next week. But we don't know because the vaccination here just started 2 months ago and is going slow. So
Have you been able to get your vaccine, Jessica?
No.
Oh goodness.
No.
Well, I hope that they are able to get vaccines to you, and that you, the Honduran folks, can get vaccinated. I want to say thank you to both Jessica and Phil for being our guests today. We're real excited about the great work you are doing through Lunches for Learning, and we are excited to be a partner with you in this endeavor. And I want you to know that every Sunday morning during our prayers, during worship, we pray for Lunches for Learning by name. And so we not only support you financially, but with our prayers as well. So keep up the good work. Any final words you want to say?
I would say that prayers are powerful, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your partnership and for the generosity of the Peace Lutheran Church community and your willingness to dive in with us, to understand the need in Honduras, and to be willing to address it and be the hands and feet of Christ in Honduras with us. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Pastor. And I had to say that the people in Santa Rita is praying for you too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They're really grateful for the food that you are providing, and they let us know all the time.
Oh, that's great.
Say hello to the pastor and say how grateful we are with this food.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you. Well, thanks again for being with us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you.